Well, today we're here to talk about the APA format. And this workshop that we put together has two goals. First goal is to inform the participants about APA style and standards. And so this is to let you know essentially the system of APA, the kind of rationale of why we have APA, and some of the details about what exactly correct APA looks like. And then second is to familiarize yourselves with some of the APA-based resources that are available to you. And as part of that, James is going to do a special little tutorial about finding sources on websites, the correct way to cite websites, and other kinds of electronic sources, which is a big thing to talk about because there are more and more electronic sources being used, and the books haven't quite caught up to the technology yet. So, first off, what is APA? What does APA stand for?
American Psychological Association.
Perfect. Why do we use that here at S.I.T? Yeah, that's a good.
I think it's used in social studies.
Right. It's widely used in the social sciences, and education has a strong connection to the social sciences. Did you want to add something?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. But it seems a little counterintuitive at first because we don't even have a psychology program. Why are we offering that? But yeah, it's because of the connection to the social sciences. APA includes stylistics, and this can be things such as language and formatting. It can also include, like, for example, the way we punctuate or the kinds of papers we put together. APA standards include in-text citation, which is the way that we attribute the information that we use in our papers to a certain source, and our references, which are the sources that provide the information that we use in our research. So APA is widely used in academic writing. So before we start, we need to talk a little, here, let me move these. No problem. Before we start, we kind of need to talk a little bit about APA and the writing process. To understand why such a complicated and complex system as APA exists, let's first talk a little bit about what academic writing is. Academic writing has three purposes. But first, I really like this quote by Zora Neale Hurston. Research is formalized curiosity. It's poking and prying with a purpose. And the two key words I think that should come out of this is the formalized and the purpose. And that should become clear as we talk more about what APA is, or academic writing is. First off, I'm not real wild about this bit. Academic writing is used for a critical or analytical exercise. Now, in this sense, when I use the word critical, I don't mean as in criticism. I mean critical as in critical theory, which is, applying a kind of strict or rigorous way of evaluating something. And analytical, of course, I mean as in analysis or, looking at something from multiple angles and figuring out what it's about. So it can be a critical or analytical exercise. Academic writing can be reflective practice. I'm assuming since all of you have been at S.I.T, you're well aware of what reflective practice is. This is, evaluating your own thought process, evaluating yourself as like the instrument of your own research. And academic writing states original ideas. It can outline the findings of inquiry or describe the results of research. So, when we talk about finding, it can communicate unfamiliar or counterintuitive concepts. It's linked to current thinking in the participant's academic field, and is couched in relevant academic discourse. So we see academic writing has a lot of really complicated things that it has to do. It has to, present ideas that might be difficult to understand, ideas that might run counter to our own experience. It has to express our own, personal ideas and experiences in an academic and kind of rigorous way. And it has to evaluate and look at complicated ideas from many different angles. So academic writing is something that's very challenging, very difficult, and one of the ways that we can make it easier is making sure we're all on the same page. So APA is a system that makes sure we're all on the same page. It's a system that ensures complex ideas are communicated clearly and accurately. So it does this by creating consistency. So it makes sure that we talk about things in similar ways, that we attribute our ideas in the same way, that we write about our sources and the information in the sources in the same way. And it ensures accuracy through attributing facts. So when we're talking about ideas, we can say where our information comes from, and we can look at a paper and very quickly see, oh, this person is quoting this person who said it in the year 2010. And that ensures the accuracy of our writing. So that's kind of the basis of what APA is as a system and why it exists. It essentially exists so that we're all kind of on the same page, that we've all kind of got the right kind of information, and that we're not just making things up. So if you want to think about it in a very crass and simple way, it makes sure we're all communicating clearly and that we aren't liars. And that's very important with academic writing. So I'd like to do a quick exercise. And you all have had challenges with APA before, I'm assuming by now. All right? You're probably aware that APA, there's a lot of kind of detailed information. There's a lot of rules that need to be followed. So what I'd like you to do is we'll just work in groups, a group of three, and a group of 4. Okay? And I have 3 different sections of an academic paper. And what I'd like you to do is look at this page, look at the section I will give you, and in your groups, try and guess or try and figure out what the APA rules are based on the example I gave you. So you guys get to work on a title page. You guys get to work on the body of the paper. And you guys get to work on a reference page. So what I want you to do is maybe take 5 or 10 minutes in your groups and kind of pick the paper, pick the section apart, and try and guess what the rules and the requirements are for that section of an APA paper. Let's get back into the big group. Okay, so this is happening. One of the things that came up in my conversation over here was a kind of nervousness about doing APA wrong. It's perfectly natural. APA is a really complicated system, and there's a lot of details to remember, and there's a lot of really specific things. And so what we're going to talk about in this workshop is not so much, the 1001 rules that you need to follow, because there isn't time for that, unfortunately. What we'll do is we'll talk about in general terms, and we'll talk about the system, and then we'll talk about places where you can go to find the kind of hyper-detailed answers to your questions. So, first off, shall we just start with the title page? Can you guys kind of explain some of the things you've noticed in the title page?
The running hand.
Oh, yeah.
Numbers on the, which hand is it?
So
On the right-hand side, your page numbers on the right-hand side.
Up, not down.
Yeah, up, not down. But let's be clear about one thing too. all APA is not of equal priority of strength, right? Putting your page numbers in the right place is one thing. Not citing your sources or making up your sources is something completely different. So we kind of, there's a spectrum of importance. But the most important thing is that you're citing your sources and that you're not plagiarizing. So if you want to put that on our scale of 1 to 10, that's the 1. Pages in the right place, not as important as making sure your sources are cited. I mean, it's still important to make sure your paper is polished and professional looking, but yes, the papers should go, or the pages go up here. Mm-hmm. Yep. Did you have something?
So the title of the paper centered in the middle, and then underneath that, your name. Underneath that, your school. Underneath that, the name of the class, which is something I didn't know, and then the date. So, I don't know. Do you guys all have?
No. So name, school, name of class, date.
Do we have extras of the title page over here?
We should.
I think we did.
What came after school?
Name of class, like.
And all of this is available in the manual. Like the manual, and we'll show you the websites where you can find it and where you can answer the questions. Yeah, and for example, the title page is another thing. Check with your instructor to see if they require you to have a title page. The manual says that well-written academic papers have a title page that look like this. But some instructors will kind of let the title page go in the name of conserving paper, but some will require you to absolutely, for sure, have a title page. So that's, follow up with your instructor and ask. Okay, let's see. We talked about that. Okay, yeah, did you have something to add?
Yeah. When you make the running head, it's usually difficult to have the title and running head and the remaining, the body part and the last part of the page is only the header only. So, do you know how to do that?
Yeah, there's a way you can do it in a Word document where you have to go in and say add header, add footer. Just come to my office sometime and I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah, but then you only want to do this header on the title page and not have the same header across the other page.
There is an option for that.
There is an option. It's a little more tricky to explain, but
Alright.
it's possible.
Different or something.
Oh, but should we have that running head in every single page or not?
Yeah, it goes on every page, but yeah.
Yeah.
So you have there's a way you can set up a set header and footer, but we'll talk. If you have the question, come to my office and I'll show you. It's because it's hard to walk through, but I can show you how to do it. Okay, good. Anything else to add about the title page? Good. Okay, you guys had the body with some citations, right?
Yeah.
First off, could you talk in general about the formatting of the body? Not the citations, but just in general the format?
Each paragraph is indented.
Yep.
And the heading, not the running header, but the actual heading is centered. And yeah, that's the basic stuff.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the margins? Oh yeah, it is double spaced. And can I may I please?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah, the margins are about an inch, or an inch on the side. Standard margins here.
Whatever isn't that what Word does automatically?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What do you
Let
mean
it
by
do what it
sign?
does.
It's the way it's automatically set up.
Okay, that's good.
I have a question about
What's
the
that?
heading. So now here it's centered and it's not bolded.
Right.
But I thought like these subheadings should be in front of the first indent.
That's for subsection headings.
Okay, so this is the main heading.
Yep, that's the title heading.
It's like methodology or participant abstract like that.
That's a little different, and we're not going to cover that in this workshop because that's for the long paper. But you can find that. We'll show you where to find that on the APA workshop and on the APA website and on the Our Purdue website. Okay. And then can you guys speak to the citations in line a little bit?
Okay. So the one that I'm calling it the main one because I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
Where you're just paraphrasing something and then you're citing at the end of the sentence. In parentheses, you put the last name of the author, comma, the year that whatever was written, and then the period behind the parentheses. And then the other one was an in-text citation. So it says, according to Jones, and then it has, in parentheses, just the year. Then there's a quote, and at the end of that sentence, and the end of that quote, in parentheses, it has paragraph 5. So it doesn't have a page number, because we decided there were no page numbers.
Right.
Something.
Yep, that's not standard. But in a source that has no page numbers, you do para 5. But if it has a page number, you put the page number.
So
Is the paragraph?
hopefully James will talk about this in his part, because if I have something that's not written that way, it's like a website and there's stuff over here and stuff over here, and it's like here's the main home page, but it's on this page over here.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that kind of. Okay, so yes, the quote is name, year, and then page number or paragraph, and we'll do this in more detail in just a second. So if you're a little behind, don't get nervous. Yep.
Just like in the example here where it's Taylor 2009, there's no page number there.
Right.
So is that?
There's no page number there because it's not a quote; it's a paraphrase.
So it's only a quote, only a page number if there's a direct quote.
If you are lifting it directly from the text, you need to say exactly where you lifted it from. If it's a paraphrase is kind of a generalization based from the text. You kind of give a more general. You just say the article in general. So yeah, that's important. I think one of the logical underlying rules of the of APA is the more specific of information you use, the more specific your reference needs to be. So if you take something from the text that is exact, you need to say exact.
That makes sense, actually.
Like if you, that's a rule that will apply to it as a whole, and then you can kind of fill in the details. We'll do a little bit more. We'll show you in just a minute when we're finished with this activity.
That particular thing, that is now easier to remember in my mind. It's just this.
Yeah, well, when you've got
even the APA and just like.
The book, to be honest, the book is like 1,000 things you should not or should do and should not do, right? And we can't memorize that. What we can do with this session is we'll kind of learn the rules in general, and then you can learn where to find the answer to your question. That's the best we can do in an hour and a half. Let's see. What have you guys got for the reference page?
Reference page goes in alphabetical order, starting from last name and first letter of the first name.
Okay, what?
The
The author, correct, yes. So first letter of the last name of the first author, if there is multiple authors. So first letter of the last name of the first author.
Then year, and sometimes we have month and date. And then it goes to title, and description page one first, title, name of the book.
Okay, so let's just say there seems to be a system of author, the name of the book, where it was published, and so on. So there's a set order to that, and we'll go into detail in just a minute on that. How about the formatting? How is it formatted?
First line is that
Yes, good question. Yep, we call this a hanging indent. Like this kind of shape here where the first line hangs over. We call that a hanging indent. And so that's important. The first line is longer, the second line is shorter. Hanging indent.
And all the others that come after go
Or all the sources. Yep. And then this is, oh, sorry, did you guys have more to add? Okay, well, this is the big one that I notice a lot. With APA, it's not called a bibliography, it's not called a works cited, it's called references. And that is not bold, not underlined, not anything special to it. It's just references centered at the top of the page.
It has always to be in a new page.
Yes, and it has to be on its...
No colon, just references.
Yep, just
references.
That's another rule that you could remember with APA. When it comes to style, less is more. It's very minimal in the stylistic things. So, you know, you're not going to have a lot of things in bold or a lot of things in italics or in a lot of things in different font. It likes to keep it very like clean and homogeneous looking. Yep.
So does it have to be Times New Roman, or is there any kind of rule on that?
The manual itself says a 10 to 12 point font.
Okay.
I don't use Times New Roman. I use Calabria because I like Calabria.
Is there any like serif or sans serif or something?
Not,
Just whatever you want.
yeah, just not wing names, I think.
See, I never knew there was a range that you could use between 10 to 12. I thought it was just 12, so I think.
Yeah, well, because I think some 10-point fonts are bigger or something like that, but I do know that teaching undergrads, I learned how to spot a 12-point font by eye, because with my experience with undergrads, you kind of push the envelope of font size a little bit to get length. But, okay, so you guys have got a good start on kind of guessing and kind of seeing what the APA system is. And that's important. Like, once you have an example of how to do it, you can kind of begin to extrapolate what it's supposed to look like. So let's talk a little bit about the scary bits of APA format. So I think that there's APA stuff can be divided into 3 different categories. The first of it is the stuff that I like to call the basic and instinctive. Like, this is the stuff that we have enough background as graduate students with academic writing, or what we think academic writing looks like, that we can kind of guess some of these rules. Like, for example, it should be typed double spaced, printed on standard size paper. That's 8.5 by 11. Like, we know instinctively you don't hand in academic papers on the super large size paper. It would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot more of my paper.
Yeah, like a scroll.
well, I always thought scrolls had a nice touch to them, you know? But we know this. We know 1-inch margins on all sides because this is the way our computers are set up. We don't even think about it.
Can I ask you too about consideration that when I went to school 30 years ago, we hand wrote papers.
Okay.
And we put, so please do not assume that we know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We don't know. And then
I
I lived in
apologize.
countries without computers and, okay, so please, maybe they know, and if you want in private, I'll make an appointment, but I don't know.
I apologize. You're right.
Okay.
You're right. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions about that. You're right. So it is, the 1-inch margins on all sides. This is important. And then the 10 to 12 point font. Times New Roman, which I'm not a particular fan of for aesthetic reasons, but it's standard or similar font in that size. Include page header, title, upper left hand of every page, page number in the upper right hand side of every page.
So, like, for example, I just had a 3-page paper.
Mhm.
I was not aware that I could have even used 10 to 12.
Mhm.
And the information was
Mhm.
like kind of cut short on a 3-page paper. So that is to the advantage that when you really do need to put more in a smaller space, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. It gets into one of those gray areas, though, right?
Okay.
Like, you think about if you've got a 1 to 3 page paper.
Okay.
Yes, you could, shrink down your font and fit more in. But that would, you know, to me, would you actually improve your paper by making the language more concise to fit it rather than shrinking the font? Or, you know, if you need to expand the font to fit, would you actually better served by adjusting the language of your paper rather than adjusting the font size? It's one of those things. You could do it, but should you? Would you be best served? Would this get you the best grade? You know, it's a shortcut, and like all shortcuts, there's definite cost.
Sometimes less is more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, not to get hung up on a point, but like, is there like an approximate word count per page that, like, to avoid a situation like that?
250?
I don't know. You'd have to check the manual.
Okay.
I don't have that information in my brain.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, because that might help avoid a situation where somebody's using too small of a font or too big of a font or something.
Yeah. Well, I don't. That's a good point. Google it. But I think content is definitely more important than font size.
I know.
Like that's.
Can I just say, I think you really should know your audience as well, because you might have a professor that has really bad eyesight, and if you put a 10-point cut on there, they're going to be pissed off.
Well, and this is a rule that is a really good
Do not.
I mean, this is a good unofficial rule too.
Yes.
What comes down to is the instructor.
Right.
You know, the assignment they give, their expectations, and what they feel, you know, the assignment that you're doing for them, the task that they've given to you, what they feel the finished task ought to look like. So they're the ones that kind of frame what you should be doing. And then, you know, the APA is kind of like this system that we all work within. But, you know, for example, a reflective journal entry for one class might look a little different formatting and detail-wise than a research paper for another class. And that's the point where you should go and have a conversation with your instructor about how the paper is supposed to look. Okay, so this is the next part, which is a lot more subtle and a lot more fuzzy, but equally as important, and that's to maintain an academic tone. This is something that has changed, and if you see it in the manual, it actually says this now, to use personal pronouns where appropriate. So, for example, we conducted an experiment. Avoid the authors conducted an experiment. This has changed recently. There are those people that were brought up with we don't use personal pronouns in academic writing. I was one of them, and I was shocked when I saw this in the manual because I was like, what's that? I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's to incorporate the more reflective component in the social sciences in particular. But I don't have an answer to that one.
It sounds so, the way it was before, like, one must always consider.
Yeah.
It sounds so hoity-toity.
Yeah, like.
I think, I don't know if it's going to change, but it sounds better this way.
And then this is, I think, a little bit more applicable for Americans, because for us, the passive voice sounds more educated and a little bit more worldly, you know. But active voice is definitely preferable to the passive voice in writing, according to the APA manual. But I think this is where it gets really tricky, because to some people, writing in the passive voice sounds more academic, it sounds more educated, but active voice is much clearer, much more direct, and I feel it communicates your ideas much more clearly. So the example is, we ask the participants questions. The participants have been asked questions by the researchers. All of the information is here, but it's long and or it's in the passive voice. It isn't as direct and isn't as clear. So any questions about the active or passive? Okay, and then we've got the really tricky stuff, and the stuff that I feel is the most important, and that's the references and the works cited. This is the stuff that you should definitely focus on and definitely try to get right, because it shows that For one, your ideas aren't coming completely out of left field, that they're connected to a body of academic thought, and two, that your ideas are accurate reflections or accurate expressions of research that has been done. So essentially to show what you're saying is true or accurate. So this is for the works cited page. In general, we invert the author's names. So last name first. We have Smith, comma. And by the way, a little trick in case you have a difficult time telling a family name from a given name. If you see a comma, the name that comes before it is a family name. This is just a trick for me when I'm looking at authors to try and figure out family name or given name. So alphabetize the reference list entries, last name of the first author of each work. I don't know why, but this kind of paradox sticks in my brain, so it makes it easy to remember. Last name of the first author.
Oh,
Do you,
okay.
do you add the other authors, or no, you just leave them out?
You do have the other authors, but the other authors are typically listed in alphabetical order, but sometimes they might be, like, for example, the professors and then the grad students follow.
Is it just commas between if there's multiple authors, or do we say and?
We don't have an example of that.
You don't have an example of that? We'll double check that because I don't want to tell you wrong.
Okay.
And I've got just a fuzzy picture in my head, so we'll check that in just a second. So capitalize the first letter of the first word of a title, and subtitle, the first word after a colon or a dash in the title, and proper nouns. This is tricky. This is one that you should learn because RefWorks often gets it wrong.
Only the first letter of the first word.
So capitalize only the first letter of the first
All
word
these should be lowercase.
of a title and subtitle, the first word after a colon or a dash in the title, and proper nouns.
Okay.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Well, no, just reading that
Okay.
is like tricky. I
Mhm.
mean, I probably get it, but I think about it. And proper nouns. Wait a minute.
This is proper nouns is the one that
Or like
China,
yeah.
Korea. This is the one that RefWorks always gets wrong because it can't tell a proper noun.
That's the name of the book.
First word.
Having a blind here.
Ooh, I think that might have. I had the RefWorks help me. That might be a mistake. The
RefWorks can do mistakes.
yes, RefWorks often does mistakes, particularly with the title. So be very careful with that.
That's how I did all my citations.
Yeah.
Well, as a system, RefWorks works, but you've got to double check it. You can't trust it to do the thinking for you. Title and proper nouns. And do not capitalize the first letter of the second word in a hyphenated compound word. This is one that I always get wrong personally, because when you have a hyphenated noun, I feel like. Can someone explain a
Like
hyphenated noun?
sign up,
Mm-hmm.
sign
Oh,
up,
okay.
it's sign hyphenate up.
Okay.
And I always want to, if I capitalize the S,
Mhm.
I want to capitalize the U.
You as
I
well.
just want to, but
Oh.
they're saying don't do that.
But if it's a proper noun, that's different, right?
The proper noun. What is a proper hyphenated noun?
Hold on, I'm trying to think of one. Raleigh Durham. Right?
Raleigh
The
Durham.
city.
Yeah.
So they're both.
That's a proper noun.
Yeah, so you would capitalize both, hyphenated or not. Sorry,
That's a
I
really good thing that I
There's
haven't
always somebody.
Well,
Yeah, this is what's really frustrating about this, because this is why we have the manual and we have these resources. So, for example, if she had the question, we go to the manual, and she's like, well, I know that we're not supposed to capitalize the first letter, so then we can go to one of the resources that we've got to find the answer. Now, I would say a double proper noun, Raleigh Durham,
Right.
it would make sense to me.
I would just capitalize it and then I would argue with the teacher.
Well, I invite you to do that. I'm a little more conservative in my approach. I I would go to other places and try and find the answer myself.
Maybe because it's just a word and a proper noun, it doesn't,
Maybe only for proper nouns. That's what we're thinking, but the point is, we have access to all kinds of information resources. That's a question that I would pose to
Yeah,
that.
I'd be curious.
Can I ask a question?
What's up?
If the original title or subtitles are all capitalized, we
Mhm.
should copy exactly in a way that it's originally. Or
Uh,
should we just like capitalize the first letter?
You should, when using the APA format, a title, for example, is not a quote or a quotation. So you should format it the way the APA requirements.
Okay.
Now, the opposite of that is when we're quoting something lifted from the text, we want to keep it exactly the same as the text. But we don't count a title used in a reference as a kind of quotation. Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go more into like what information, like beyond?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Well, we'll kind of give you a rule to help. And then some of the basic stuff here for the formatting of the reference list. Center title references at the top. Do not bold it. Double space the reference entries.
Oh. So,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
an example, like if I have this one, I want a double space between, here, I don't know how to do it. This has to be double spaced in between here, or it has to be double spaced?
No, this is correct.
Okay.
So, like this. The formatting came out funny on this. That's not how I wanted it. But it's like this here. So we've got the double space
Just
between the reference.
Because
Yeah.
my word program
So
did that, and it
this
was
is not
totally
correct?
wrong, but.
No, it's not. I
So
just
I
used.
think that's something I've been.
So
So
between
no,
the
no
reference-
space between
Yeah.
here.
Each reference.
So think of it each as like a little cluster.
So it's a paragraph and then
Yeah.
you double space it.
Me too.
So no.
That's where, because I was like, I'm supposed to double space all this, really?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
but within the reference, it's close together.
Okay, so
Between
single space
references.
reference and then double space between
Right.
references.
Yep.
Okay.
And usually, I did this with RefWorks, and usually RefWorks will do that for you automatically. I'm not sure what happened with this.
No, but sometimes I've done with RefWorks and
Mhm.
it comes out like this.
Okay.
And sometimes I've done it with RefWorks and it comes out,
Sure.
so I don't know why.
Yeah, well, it boils down to just don't trust it to do your thinking for you. Let's see. Flush left, first line entry, indented subsequent lines. That means hanging indent. So first line hangs out, second line goes in. And then order entries alphabetically by the author's last name. Okay, so that's the basic stuff. So here we've got a format for just a basic source. So we've got a problem.
Hanging indent.
Right, there should be a hanging indent in. If you want to be what's that? If you kind of want to be detail crazy, this is probably not the most appropriate font to be using for your
Oh, yeah.
frame, but usually there's one person in every crowd who's very detail oriented and says, "Isn't that a bad font?" Yes, this is not the kind of font we should be using. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's good, right?
Yeah, we've got, well, let's check, right? We've got the author, last name, first initial. We've got a year. We've got no capitalizations after the first. Yeah, the font.
So you.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. It's maybe not the best font for a reference. It's too.
No, but the font,
Oh, italic.
cursive.
The ita-
Italic.
Oh, the
Italic.
the italics. No, we don't have italics.
No, I mean like here you use this like the difference from this and this.
Okay, so on the example here, we've got the article, and then we've got the place where it was published, and that's italicized. The
I don't know, I know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
I know what it is, but what do we have to italicise?
the place where the article was published. So if it was published as part of a journal, or if, so here we see
Okay,
So the journal.
journal,
so
the title
so
itself.
the article is, so it would be article then journal, right, is the order?
Mhm.
And the article is not italicized?
Okay. Let's back up and we'll talk. This is a good question.
Is that a book right there? Are we assuming that's a book? Where
This-
it
yeah,
says
this
New
is
York, Phoenix, ELT,
Yep.
that's not a journal.
Right.
So it doesn't need to be italicized.
So let's talk a little bit about the order. There is a logic to the order of the way things are placed in an APA citation or in an APA reference, and the order goes I kind of remember like this. So we've got who wrote it, when they wrote it, then a stop, period. Then we have where was it, where did they write it. So we've got the title of the article. Then we've got where, kind of at a macro level. And then we've got where at the micro level. So we zoom in. So we have who, D. Noonan. When, 1995. Where did he say it? Language and Teaching Methodology, a textbook for teachers. Where at the macro level? In New York. Where at the micro level? Phoenix ELT, which is the publisher. So, you look confused.
Okay, do we need like the name of the town? Like except New York, comma, and why?
That has to do with the publishing. And there's like, so for the book that was published, yeah, we'll say like the town and then the publishing house. We'll show a couple more examples, but the exact detailed requirements is a little bit different for a journal, for a book, for an article. And for that, you should definitely turn to the manual. But this can help you kind of guess. The where is at the macro level zoomed out, and then the micro. So here we've got another source. So this is just a made-up source. We've got where, then we've got when, the article, where it was published, and the publisher. So we've got who, when, where. We've got where at the macro level, like zoomed out, far away, and then where at the micro level. So we've got everything that's relevant. Now the exact content and the exact detailed content of a reference is going to vary from source to source. But this kind of underlying blueprint is the same for all references. We need to have this kind of basic information, and so this will just help it stick in your memory rather than memorizing. For a journal, it's got to be this, this, and this. For a magazine, it's got to be this, this, and this. Okay. So let's talk about inline citations, and then we'll take a break. We'll not take a break. We'll talk about electronic sources a little bit. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's fine.
On this example you gave us, so there's a year and then there's an actual day on one of them, but not on all of them.
Right. That's if it's available, and this is a newspaper.
Okay.
So with the newspaper, the
So
day
if
comes
like a
in.
newspaper, like an article of some kind, you should turn it.
Not, if it's a newspaper, the day is available. But for example, with a academic journal, there is no day.
And then with page numbers, that would be only if there's a specific group.
If it's a section of the newspaper, or a section of a journal. So here with the newspaper, it's got the page number because that's the page it was on in the newspaper.
Okay, but if it was in a book,
If it was
you
in,
just do the whole book, you don't put the page number.
well, see here we're falling into this hall of details, right?
Right.
Not all books are the same.
These are all the questions that keep coming
Yeah.
up, right?
Well, and that's why we have, you know, for example, you've got the writing lab you can turn to, there's, you know, the internet, the OWL stuff, but in general, there's different kinds of books, right? The books that are made up of, that are called edited books, that are bunches of articles put together, that's one type of book and is treated differently than a book that is, you know, one book all by the same author.
Okay.
And so when it's a book that is a section of articles, or an edited collection of articles, then you would use the page.
Okay.
But with a book that's one author, and that's the reason we're talking about this in detail right now is because this is a very common mistake that many people make, is an edited book versus a book that's all by one author. An edited book is a book that is a collection of articles by multiple authors.
Like our foundation book.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We should have had this class.
In the very
It's a book called like Multicultural Teens or something.
Yeah, and it's edited, but each chapter
Oh,
is a different
Different
author.
professor from here.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's tricky because the author that's on the front of the book isn't the author of the book.
Right.
The author of you cite different pages. So yeah, that's an edited book. And edited books are treated very differently than non-edited books.
And can I ask more questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. But
I should just come for a one-on-one.
yeah, actually, no, please do. By the way, come to the writing lab for one-on-ones, send us an email, make us an appointment, and we'll just talk through all of these detailed ones.
So I was just wondering about like the DOI I retrieved from and like when you use those and what the difference is.
With the electronic sources.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit,
Okay.
and then we can definitely make an appointment because that one's a bit of a long conversation.
Okay.
So first off, as we talked about a little bit before, when we use information from a source, we have essentially two different types of information we can use. We can use a paraphrase, which is in general kind of rephrasing or putting in your own words of the information from the article or the source you use. And then we have the quote, which is exactly lifting the words from the article or the source you use and putting it in your own text. Now, quoting, we have to be very, very careful with, because if you accidentally if you use a quote and it's misconstrued as your own words, that becomes plagiarism. And so we handle these two different ways of using other kinds of information very differently. So we've got, So whenever you use a source, provide in parentheses the author's name and the date of publication. Now, don't look at this just yet. So here we have a close paraphrase. Tyndall, 2012, states that a healthy breakfast frequently includes a significant amount of coffee, bacon, and one other protein. I'm a big believer in this. So this is a very close paraphrase to the text. Ignore that page, we'll come back to it. For quotations and close paraphrases, provide the author's name, date of publication, and a page number. So here we have a direct quotation. A healthy breakfast frequently includes a, quote, significant amounts of coffee, a healthy serving of bacon, and one other protein, quote. So direct quote, we have the author's name, this is called the date, and the page number. Now, once again, this goes back to that kind of rule we talked about before. This is exactly from the text. Okay, so remember what this looks like. And then we've got, Tyndall states that a healthy breakfast frequently includes a significant amount of coffee, bacon, and one other protein. This is very, very close to the original text. Now, what the APA manual tells you to do is, if your paraphrase is very close to the original text, put the page number that you got the very close paraphrase from. I recommend that you do this when you look at you look at your own writing and say, oh God, that's really close to the text. This is a good kind of insurance policy to make sure you're not accidentally plagiarizing or not accidentally trying to construe someone else's words as your own. So we'll go back. Here we've got, the original text says this: significant amounts of coffee, a healthy serving of bacon, and 1 other protein. The paraphrase, it's really close. So in this situation, add the page number. Notice we don't need to put the author's name, because the author's name is used in the narrative of the text. We don't need to use the date, because we've got the date at the beginning of the quote. So we've got all of the relevant information here, but it isn't all at the same time. Now, for example, if we didn't have the author referenced in the narrative of the text, we would have to put it in the citation. We didn't have the year up here, we would definitely have to put it in the citation.
Can I ask a question?
What's up? Yes,
About
please.
citations in general.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are mentioning like a few things which are from the same author, like in
Mhm.
meantime, do you have to mention his name or her name every single time that he mentioned about what he was talking about in the text?
Okay, that depends on if the way you mention them is a paraphrase or a quotation. If it is a quotation, you need to mention the author every single time. If it is a paraphrase and the paraphrases are very close, you can mention the author at the end. Mention the author and citation at the end. But that's not hard and fast, because if you mention the author and then you mention some more information and then you mention that author again, it gets a little tricky. The point is for clarity, so you have to use your judgment a little bit. Like, nobody gets in trouble for citing sources too much. It's when you don't have enough of the citations that's a problem.
And we can say he or she
Mm-hmm.
again and again.
Yeah.
If it's like in the scope of same page or
Right,
something.
right. So, for example, if it's a very well respected author, you can reference them in the narrative and say that, Johnson and Hammersmith say, blah 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 blah. Or you can just say the research says da 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 da, parentheses, Johnson Hammersmith 2012. Mm-hmm.
Okay, just like going off of that, like does APA use like is it IBID? Like to mean like that the reference
Oh,
is
yeah,
the same
it
as
is,
the
it is.
previous one?
No, not that I know.
No.
I know what you're
So
talking about.
every
I've
time
seen it.
you use
That is Chicago, I think.
the Chicago.
Yeah,
Okay,
Chicago.
yeah, I wasn't
I'm-
sure. I know.
I think for her question, what I've learned is if you're talking about them in a paragraph just one time, but if you jump to another paragraph, you have to cite them again.
Right.
It's kind of understood that
Yes.
it's one paragraph about that person.
Yeah.
So you can just cite somebody at the very end, like, I'm talking about this guy the whole paragraph, and then I'm
Yeah,
referencing
kind
at
of
the end.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Or if
So
it's
it's
like,
like-
what if it's multiple paragraphs? Would you put one at the end of each paragraph? Or
what do you mean by multiple paragraphs?
like if you have multiple paragraphs that are maybe citing the work of somebody, like if you're, maybe you're trying to explain a concept that somebody has presented that they spent an entire book on, and you get it down to 3 paragraphs.
Oh,
Then,
got
like,
you. Well, first off, if you reference the author in the narrative, then you just have the year at the end of the paragraph.
Okay.
If you don't reference the author, you put the name and the year at the end. You might want to err on the side of caution and just,
Right.
if you're like, I'll just put it here just to be sure, that's fine. So, but yeah, it's like James said, it's understood if it's at the end of a paragraph. But if it's multiple paragraphs in a row, you should probably err on the side of caution and put it at the end of each paragraph. Yes?
when we quote maybe half page,
Mm-hmm.
we have to indent it. That's how I see.
Yes, it is. And
Indent the whole,
Mhm.
and then you write the quotation, parenthesis, something.
Yep. If you use if it's more than 4 lines,
Yeah.
some people say if it's more than 4 lines. Some people say if it's 5 lines or more.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have 40 words.
Yeah, 40 words is what
40
it
words
says.
is-
That's what
in the
Okay. So 40 words.
I counted.
What?
Oh, really?
More than 40
Yeah.
words, you can read.
What am I
Indented.
Yeah, you have to indent it.
It's kind of like.
Yeah, well, yes, you do. You have to indent it special, and then you put.
Push it over a little bit.
The other thing too is,
Like if you.
since it's a quote, you will put it at the end of the quote.
Yeah.
Or whoops, you will treat it like a quote for purposes of citation.
And that is single space.
Yep. When it's pushed together,
Yeah.
the big quote. Yep. And then at the end, you treat it like a quotation because you're taking it directly from the text. You're just taking a lot directly from the text. Did you have something?
No. Just,
Okay, cool. Well, first off, any questions? We all set. Like, this is not meant to be the exhaustive, all the details, because there's so many of them. We're just trying to give you like a primer, and then you can come to us or the internet with your details. But one of the things that we should talk about is electronic sources. So, go for it, James.
all right, so good. All right, so we talked a lot about different things you do with APA. It is really, really confusing. Try not to get too bogged down into what exactly you should do. Basically, think of APA as a treasure hunt, right? You're doing your references, and you want to find these little bits of information so you don't commit plagiarism, right? So if you don't do a good treasure hunt, the pirates are going to kill you, right? So anyway, I'm going to raise that here. All right, you guys are going to have to stand up.
Way too much information.
Stand up.
All right, sorry about the whiteboard. Now, there are different kinds of
Can you
articles.
turn that off? I cannot see
Yeah.
with that, I'm sorry, but I cannot see clearly.
All right,
And can you
yeah,
put it all the way up? Thanks.
You have to
Yeah,
go
I think you have to go all the way down. There you go.
all right. So the different things that we sort are what? What do we sort in our works? What kinds of materials do we cite in our works?
Corporate websites.
Websites.
Corporate websites.
I'll just put websites for now. What else?
And say academic paper?
Can we say journals?
Electronic journals.
Okay. Let's just go with journals for that one.
Articles, books,
Articles, books.
online use.
Okay, let's just go with these 3. Okay. So let me spread these out. What I want you to do, make this kind of like a community blackboard. I want all of you to come up and think about what information you need to cite these sources. For example, website. What do I need for the website?
The link.
Web page.
Link. Or one more.
The title.
Title. Yeah, those are easy. Okay? So come up here. I want everyone to come up right now, kind of move around. Write down 1 or 2 things that you need to cite each of these items. And there are many, many more, of course. We're just doing these 3.
Oh, take the order.
Up here, I'll say something for you. I don't want to honk.
I know, well,
I don't want to honk.
that's why I'm like, Dave, how about just,
So all y'all, how about what else do y'all think should go up there?
Sorry, she has to go.
No,
Sorry.
Oh,
what journal name.
Any no idea?
Page range, or journals can be page range.
Okay.
And then if it's electronic, the DOI number.
So that's how you
The stable.
Okay, so, all right. So, if you have these sources, these are the things you need to cite them, okay? So really quick, one question was DOI. All that is a thesis. It's a published thesis. So if you see DOI, you know thesis. It's a special way to cite something. So today, I'm going to give you a few hands-on examples of how to cite websites. Okay? So these are the items we need, right? We have author, date, the link, of course, the title, the date of retrieval. This is changing. A few years ago in APA, you needed to cite the date you retrieved it, but if you look at modern day APA books, it's not really necessary anymore. What?
I don't know how to turn those lights on. I can't see that.
Oh,
password.
hold on.
Seriously.
It's about to go away in a
Sorry.
second. It's about to go away in just 1 second. Where's the remote? Oh, it's right here.
Do you need lights?
Yeah, it's that light we need that light
Well,
on.
I'll turn this one on.
Yeah, that's
So
better.
you can see.
That's
Put
it.
that light on.
Now I can see.
We're about to turn that off. So,
Now I
okay,
can
just
see.
take a look.
Thank you.
That's what we're going to work on. Okay. So say bye bye there. Oh, bye bye.
You turn the lights on.
Oh, okay. So I'm moving them really, really fast because we don't have much time. I do apologize.
Should be like an intro and then
Agreed. Okay. And for those of you who don't know, my name is James.
Hi, Dan.
Okay, so here we go. Now, first of all, this page right here, it is on your handout, the Purdue OWL website. If you ever have a question about APA, this website will answer 95% of your questions. It talks all, of course, this isn't the website.
No, it says down there, APA guide. Is that what you're trying to get? The thing you're trying to get?
Yeah, you got it. It's done.
Paper style.
Sorry. That's the one I want. Okay. This website has all the information you want about APA, right? So you have in-text citation, general formatting, in-text citation, footnotes, references, blah, 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 blah. And they give you specific ideas on how to cite articles and periodicals, how to cite books, how to cite other printed sources, okay? I'm not going to talk too much about this. Go to their website. You can learn all about it yourselves.
And I'll give you a tip. If you come and ask us questions, we'll sit and we'll go through this together, probably with the same website. So it's a really solid, really good reference.
Okay. Also, this website, which I discovered, citationmachine.net. Write this down. It's not in the handout.
Send a citation.
It's like RefWorks, but it seems to be a little bit more accurate. But like any RefWorks item, always double check. Always go back to the OWL, because usually the online things are incorrect. All right? So this will help you.
You just Google citation machine?
Yeah, just Google it. That would work the best.
Citationmachine.net. It's a .net address. Apparently they still have those.
Yeah, I got those.
All right, so I'm moving really, really fast. I do apologize, but on this handout here, I put this on the Writing Lab Moodle site. It works through, in this one, just 2 examples of how to cite online sources, okay? If you go to the Moodle site, it gives 3 examples in a little more detail how to cite online sources, okay? So, for the intentions of this workshop, I want you to try to think of an article that you have that you don't know how to cite. I know you don't have your computers right now, and we will work on that right now. You have one?
Yes. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if, I think this one's right. I don't know if the rest of them, you tell me. pick one that's not right and...
Well, okay, I'm sorry. I should have specified a little bit better. What I mean is she's already kind of got the information together. What I mean is an article you want to cite. Yeah, it's perfect. This is what I wanted. Okay, so Sylvia has this article here. Oh my gosh. Can you read the name, please?
Yachai, Akicha name for knowledge. Elefante blanco, like white elephant or the crown jewel.
Okay, and so the author's name, it's a working paper,
Yeah.
all right, and so, oh my gosh.
Julio Jose Julius Joseph Bravo.
Okay, I'll try. So what I'm going to do right now is I will work to cite this source. Now, it is in Spanish. Thank you very much for being the most
Sorry.
example. But we'll give it a try. All right. So remember what I wrote over here. These are the things we need to know. So I'm going to sit here at the computer and I'm going to speak really loudly. If I talk too loudly, just tell me to shut up. So, first thing, I'm going to open up this guy. Give me a second here, please. All right. I'm going to write down all of the information we can take from this article. I'm going to give this back to you, Sylvia. What is the name of the author?
Jose Bravo. Now last name Prado.
Actually, this is actually, I think, not going to work for what I want to do. I mean, I want something, hold on, I know what I want to go for here. Press. Okay. Okay, so let me start over again. I'm going to track down a book that's called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. All right? Who knows of this book? Does anyone know? Yeah, okay, so let's say, for example, you get this site, the source, online. Your teacher gave you the article, but you don't know exactly how to cite it. Does everyone understand?
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, oh, what do? I have this here. So I have article, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I'm sorry for the misspelling. Okay, so first of all, I want to try to find this. So I have the name of the article. I'm going to copy this. Google Scholar, scholar.google.com. This is like your first base for researching how to cite something. This will give you an inaccurate view of how to cite a source, but it'll give you a beginning place. So I'll click here and search. All right, there it is, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Now, if you look up at that web page, you can click on it and view the document. But you also have cited by, okay? What that means is other articles that cited that source, you can go to those articles, cheat, and copy their citation and put it in your work. So you don't have to figure out how to do this, right? You can just, like, watch this. I'm going to, right there, open a new tab. All right, this guy, he has it in his book. I'm going to open it up. Might take me a minute. So I'm going to go all the way down to citations. Should be down here. Might take a while. All right, anyway, I'll come back to that. So I can click on that. I'll show you that in a minute. Or this right here, S.I.T. I'm going to click on that. Boop. APA.
Nice.
Now, is that correct?
No,
No.
No, why not?
because it's not the
It's 'cause it's
slide
not
over
indented,
on
but
the
the rest
second
of it-
one.
Yeah, it has a lot of mistakes. This is made by Google.
Mm.
But this gives you a starting block, right? If you don't know when it was made, if you don't know the publisher, this can help you find that basic information. Don't use this for your final citation, but just use this to start with, right? Everyone understands?
Yeah, I mean, I could see one thing that's wrong with it, but is it not supposed to be italicized? What?
It's actually totally wrong. There are lots of logical mistakes, so,
Okay.
yeah. But that's just a basic start.
It uses a cousin to RefWorks to aggregate all that data. So if RefWorks can't figure it out, its little cousin can't figure it out either. Point is, don't trust it. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's 100% correct.
Oh, naturally, this one. Let's try another one of these. Okay, sorry for the long delay. All right. I'm sorry, that's just not going to work. Anyway, so we have that. Now, let's go back to here. I'm going to click on it. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. So here's my book. Now, we have the name of the article. Fix this. Okay. So what else do I need to cite the article?
The year,
Author, year, what else?
publisher.
Publisher, place. Anything else?
If it's an electronic, don't you have to put where you retrieve
Might-
it from?
URL.
And you might need a page number if it's something.
Is this a book or an article?
This is a book.
Okay, so don't you have to put, if it's an electronic book, don't you have to put retrieved from?
We'll get all that. So this, first of all, remember the treasure hunt. We're not giving the treasure to the pirates yet. We're just getting the information. That's all we want to do right now. Right? Like, so if you're reading this article, you just want to keep notes of this information so you can make the citation later.
My point is, if it's an article, you do it one way. If it's a book, you're confusing me. So is this an article or a book?
It's a book.
Okay, but then you keep referring to article up there.
Oh, because he got a piece of this book.
Yeah.
It's a little old.
Okay, I'll change it.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just in my mind, you cite an article one way and you cite
No,
a
you
book another way, right?
Yeah.
So when you keep using them interchangeably, I'm already confused.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry. I just changed it. I was going to use a different example, but anyway, I apologize.
Okay.
So, all right, author. Right. So here's the author right there. So how do I write the author's name out?
Where P.
Period.
Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. What's next?
P.
P. Do I write the whole name out?
Nope.
P. Okay.
Okay, is that a dot in front of the P?
It's
Yeah. I'm sorry about
It's
the formatting. I
formatting.
can't do anything
It's
about
the
that.
formatting thing. It
Oh,
just
okay,
shows
but that
the
dot
thing.
is not supposed to be, okay, I got it.
That
here
dot
it
is.
stuff.
No.
That dot is, but that one is.
Yeah, just like
okay.
it. Okay. Anyway, so year. Now, how do we find out the year?
I don't know.
Okay. What did I do last time with this?
Go back to Google.
Site. I have the year right there, right?
Okay. 2000.
So 2000. So I'm going to go back to here. All right. So we have the name of the book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. All right. The place.
That's your site.
All right. It's an online
Oh,
book,
look,
so I'm
it
going to
says
go here.
2006.
Right.
Right,
So
like
here,
that book was written.
but it was actually written in the 70s.
Yeah.
So with that,
Copyright.
this is one thing that you need to be careful of, because the edition of the book that happens to be on Google is the latest, or whatever edition it'll use for the year. So that's one of those things you need to be really careful of.
But you do want to put the original here.
So, question, all right, so you got an article from your teacher, and then you're looking up the book. So you get the article from your teacher, and maybe that was written in 2003, but then the book you looked up was in 2006. But then the site that you found was in 2000.
So-
Which one do you put down?
These books are printed again and again and again in different issues.
Yeah.
You can cite whatever issue you're using, right? You don't have to cite the original one. I mean, you could cite a work by Plato, but it's been published again and again and again.
I guess my question is, how would you find out if you didn't know which edition the article was pulled from, how would you find that out?
You'd have to track that down on the website.
Or ask your instructor.
Professor?
You have to click the edition though, right? Like, so if you're gonna use the 5th edition, you would use that year, right? Like it would have to match, right?
Yeah, you cite the version you've got.
Okay.
Wouldn't that actually be in the
Like
book,
New
like
York?
Pedagogy of the Oppressed, 5th
Right.
edition? Wouldn't you actually put it there?
So, wait, guys, hold on a second. You're kind of getting way ahead of me. I'm trying to give you a step-by-step process.
Okay.
So try not to cut me off before I complete my idea. So let's keep looking at the website. The answer to your question is here. You have to give us all time to find it.
Yeah.
So where is it?
What?
The edition. You just asked me about it. It's here.
I can't read those.
Yeah, I don't see it.
30th anniversary
Oh.
edition.
Okay?
Oh,
So, edition, 30th. Okay? Plays. We have it up here.
New York.
New York. Okay, publisher.
International, or the Continuum.
Continuum International Publishing Group Limited.
Okay, in that case, you don't have to put the.
I mean, you can if you want. I don't think anyone's going to sue you if you don't.
Okay, I just. Yeah.
All right, numbers.
Ain't no retarded people here, so.
All right, so, you know,
What?
question, yes, ma'am?
Sorry, I also happen to know that this book is translated from a different language. Is that something that needs to be included?
Yes, you are correct. I'm just trying to give you a basic example. Let's not really venture too far off in these minute problems right now. I'm just trying to help you with like tracking down information on here, okay? So, next up, page number, it's a book, so we're not going to worry about that. We have the URL. Alright, so you did mention that, but let's actually not worry about that because we're under time constraints. So I have all of this information, right? So basically, all I wanted to show you was how different ways to track down the information. These questions about translations and editors, you know, you could ask a million questions all day. That was not my purpose here. It was just to give you some tools to track down this information on your own, right? So we've done Google Scholar, and then now what I'll do is I'll take all this information, go back here to OWL, find out what it is. So it's a book, right? And so then I'll go to basic book format, and I'll plug in all these bits of information. Here's the translation. Okay, I'll look at the translation, and I'll track that down. Okay, I know I went really, really fast because we're almost out of time. And I do apologize about that. But that's all I wanted to give you was just an idea of how to track these things down. Right? Was that somewhat helpful? Yes, still good question?
No, it was great.
Okay.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah, and so just take this information that you gather and just plug it in to that little map right there. Right? And if it's some random question or some random thing like translation or, you know, published, you know, 1,000 years ago, or published, you know, by so-and-so publishing company, you know, that's you guys. Find it. It's on the website. You know. Yes, ma'am.
Are you just talking all about like finding things like authors for websites? Because that's something that comes up all the time.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
years, the year that
here,
the website was updated or...
We're almost out of time, so if you guys need to go. Electronic sources, articles, right? Now that would, if you read all about these, we talk about articles from different places. However, you're talking about authors. So single author, 2 authors, 3 authors.
Right.
An organization is an author. So if you can't find an author, you cite the name of the web page or the company that makes it. If you look at the handout I gave you, I explained all that in those examples. Okay? And I do apologize, but that is all. We're out of time, right?
We're out of time.
That is all the time we have. And I'm sorry if I was a bit pushy or forward on the thing there. Anyway, thank you guys very much.
So first off, before we finish up, so it's like we said at the beginning. There is so many details with APA, and we didn't get a chance to talk too much. He talked about the OWL website. We have There are APA manuals in the library and in the Language and Culture Department that you are more than welcome to come in and take a look at. If you have a very specific question that applies to you, please email us at the Writing Lab, either James or me, and we will get your questions answered within a 24-hour period. You can make appointments with the Writing Lab to come in, or you can, if you have a specific question about something that relates directly to your course, you can always ask your course instructor too. So, then come to the Writing Lab. We love to have people come visit and ask questions, so please do. The point is, there's a lot to know about APA. Not everybody can have access to all the information in their brain. As we talked about, I've been helping students with APA stuff. I've been writing my own stuff using APA format. I still don't know it all memorized. And frankly, that kind of speaks to my sanity a little bit. Like, nobody should have to sit down and memorize every detail of those books. But we have this information in other places. And you have many resources at your disposal to find the answer. So if you can't figure it out after looking it online, come to us. And we'll work through it together. And we'll try and find like the correct answer to your question. So that was hopefully the point of this workshop. Not to teach you everything that you could possibly know about APA in an hour and a half, but to give you the basics, the kind of framework that you can work in, and then you can come to us with more specific questions, or go to the internet, or Google it. And probably a combination of the three, because you don't want to rely too exclusively on one source. So, great, thank you for coming. If you have specific questions, you can come and see us a little bit, and if you have like long questions, like Bonnie, we can make an appointment and we'll work something out.
That's right.